welcome back to Promoted. I'm your host, Felicity Furey, CEO and co-founder of We Aspire, and I'm joined by the incredible Renee Wootton, aerospace engineer, commercial pilot, and speaker. Hey, Renee, how you doing?
Hey, Felicity. So good to be here. I'm well. I am just hanging out. It's Saturday here in Pasadena. It's still in the US. We just got back from a Greek festival, had a little bit of lamb and some galactum burgol. A little treat, a little bit of a dessert for the start of our Saturday. What about you? How's your day started?
Oh, good. Well, again, it is a beautiful weekend day here in sunny Queensland, the Sunshine Coast, Australia. And we're going to dive into a topic today. It is kind of weekend vibe. So it's good we're recording on a weekend around rest and self-care. Now, I have to say, this is definitely not my forte. This is not my strength. I'm not great at taking care of myself. And I had a recent experience that really knocked me around. There was a bunch of family stuff going on, and I thought I had some really good resilience and really great capacity in dealing with challenges. I certainly think I do, but I think it was a lot of family stuff all at once on top of work, and I just had to take the week off. So I'm coming off the back of a week off, which has been very nice, but unscheduled and unexpected. So it's really prompted me to really think about how do I rest and how to take care of myself. And for some context, I was literally sitting on my couch crying, going, I don't even know why I'm crying. I just feel really emotional. And obviously that's the point where if that's happening to you, time to take some time out. But I am one of those people where I just am like, no, I've just got to push on. I've got my deadlines. I've got my goals. I've got what I'm working towards. And for me, the other part of the challenge is that I love my work so much. If I didn't have to sleep, I literally wouldn't. I would just keep working on it. But it's a long journey. It's the classic saying, it's a marathon, not a sprint, blah, blah, blah. But I'm like, okay, this time I've got to take rest seriously, because I think I'm up to burnout number 4. And so I'm really not great at learning the lesson of taking care of myself. So while I'm in it, while I'm in the murkiness of working out, self-care, I'd love to chat to you about it, Renee, and get your tips and advice on how do you take care of yourself and ongoingly, not just because I'm I'll just take care of myself for a bit and then I'll, go back to my old ways.
Yeah, I think, first of all, we've all been there, and I am always here for you. I'm always happy to have a chat to help you work your way through it. So thanks for being brave enough to share how you're really going with all of us. And this topic is so important. I think that we have seen, and I certainly have seen, many young people kind of going through university and reaching burnout for the first time, and then realizing that, what they're seeing on social media where people are constantly achieving things is not realistic, on top of, it's almost like this projection of, oh, that person's able to do X, Y, Z, so I should be able to too. And so you're putting these unrealistic expectations on yourself. And it's really hard, because I think social media is absolutely, the highlight reel. Nobody shares those moments where they're sitting on the couch crying, with not really understanding why you're crying. It's just you're having an emotional meltdown and your body needs to cry, and it's okay to cry. And I think that I have reached that point so many times in my life as well, but certainly earlier on. I can't say that I've reached burnout probably in the last, just trying to think, certainly come close a couple of times this year, but I certainly haven't hit that point where I have overdone it. So a couple of things that I had experienced when I was younger is almost every exam period at university, I had a major illness once a year. So, and I'm talking pneumonia, glandular fever, really, really challenging mental periods because I had pushed myself too hard. So the big things that I learned during those moments were, the first thing that I generally pulled back on when I was feeling stressed and tight on time was exercise. And I did that in university repetitively. I would always stop exercising to try and make time. Then after I graduated from my undergrad degree, I went, right, that was a problem. And I realized that there was a pattern in my behavior. So the next time I go through a stressful period, I'm going to keep prioritizing exercise. Then I pushed myself incredibly hard when I was doing my flying degree and working full time. I was working full time and studying full time, and it was over the top, very, very intense, ridiculous hours. And I made the commitment, because I learned from my mistake in university, that I must keep exercising. So any gap that I had, I made sure I went to the gym. And I didn't get sick for the 2.5 year period that I pushed myself to the absolute limits. Like, I'm talking, I was getting up at 3:30 in the morning. I would, study and go to flying until almost midday. And then from midday, I would drive to work, and then I would study and work until like 8 p.m. And then I may have done that, like, that was kind of my routine every second day. So maybe, in the days in between that, it was like a 6 a.m. wake up rather than a 3:30 wake up. But, it was constant. It was a really intense period. So whilst I studied and worked full time, I also went to the gym and made sure that I looked after my body. And mentally, whilst it was tough, I did not reach burnout, which is kind of unbelievable, because I think I felt that fatigue for probably a solid 12 months after I graduated from that course. No matter how much I slept, I just never felt well slept enough until about 12 months after. So in a way, I probably did reach burnout, but I never fell apart. I didn't get sick. I was able to maintain it. Still wouldn't recommend it, but it was possible. And that's what you've got to do if you want to live in Sydney and study and do a pilot training course, which costs a bomb, whilst also living in Sydney. So amen to the cost of living crisis. But I think, and then after that, I have reached tricky periods where, like, I'm kind of feeling it right now, actually. Now that I've got a global role, I'm working US hours, UK hours, Australia hours. And so it's been quite tricky to navigate now. How do I plan my day so that I can exercise, rest, and do what I need to do each day of the week? And so for me, I think actually it comes down to how well are you maintaining your boundaries. So I know that you're a big exercise person, Felicity. I know that you're passionate about exercise. And I know you haven't been doing it. So I'm going to set you a bit of a challenge. I think that you need to start finding time in your week to exercise, because the endorphins, the health, the happiness that you feel off the back of that is exceptional. And that was always my downfall. When I was in university, I stopped exercising and I hit burnout more regularly, or I'd hit it full stop. So maybe this is the sign now to say that you can't keep putting exercise on the back burner. What do you think?
Well, I think it's been interesting one. I think like sleep is one that I've been really putting off, and there's so much amazing science around the importance of sleep. And I think because I feel like Jemima's still quite young. She's 20 months old. And so obviously my sleep has been quite poor, and for like literally years, because we also have Winston, who is 4.25. So I think I've kind of been making this excuse like, oh, I just can't get enough good sleep, or that's just the way that is, and kind of just gone, oh, well, that's just how it has to be for a bit. So I think sleep is a real cornerstone for me around making sure I'm getting sufficient sleep. So I literally went to bed at 7 p.m. last night and fell asleep. And it was amazing. I feel so much better today. So I think having that foundation of sleep, and even scheduling time for, okay, this needs to be a rest day, or even if it's on a weekend, to take some extra naps and actually have that rest in as a foundation. And then I know another really good habit for me has been around like journaling, vision, affirmations, that kind of piece. And I was doing that last year, even when Jemima was young, but that's kind of dropped off for me. So I think that will give me that real peace of mind around like goal setting and thinking about the future and spending that time journaling. And then, I think exercise, I've started actually this week doing a 30-minute walk each day. My new coach, who's incredible, she was one of the original people on Shark Tank in Australia. She's absolutely amazing, said do a 30-minute walk each day, just 30 minutes. And it's been so interesting doing that. And I feel like walking isn't like super exercisey, but it's kind of it's on the right track. We live in a hilly neighborhood, so there's always lots of hills, so that does get the heart rate up. And it's funny, like just even starting doing a 30-minute walk has turned into an hour walk because I'm enjoying it so much. Like going to a local waterfall that's like a 15-minute walk and then getting there and oh, so beautiful and spending more time there. So I think, yeah, those are kind of those key things around that rest. And I do kid myself. I go, oh yeah, I can survive off no sleep. And like for sure I can, but it's sort of to what point? And there was actually an event we ran a few months ago, or actually last month in August. And I think I shared this story with you the other day, Renee. Like the event happened. It was our biggest event. It was amazing, super successful, so happy with it. And I've been kind of running off adrenaline all week. And the event happened. And then I came home, got back to our place on Sunshine Coast at 9 p.m. And then our son fell out of bed at 11:30, busted his lip open, and I had to take him to hospital. And I feel like it's those like mum strength that you don't even know you had, like mums lifting up cars or whatever. I was in the emergency department waiting room till 5:30 in the morning till we saw a doctor. And we didn't get up to the ward till about 6:30, 7 o'clock in the morning. So I was awake that whole time. And I swear it was like mama bear strength that I had no idea that I had, being there with Winston and being awake that whole time. Obviously, like it's his face, his busted lip open, like got to get that stuff sorted. Even though we only live a 10-minute walk from the hospital, I just wanted to so be in my bed sleeping. And I think, like that happened. And then I was like, I'll just be fine. I'll plow on. I, slept that next day, but I didn't actually take that time to rest and recover. And I think it can be tricky when things come up out of the blue that you don't expect, or that are those challenging situations, in actually just going, okay, pausing, this has happened. And I find it really tricky to think about because I'm not in the best state of mind, which is like, you got to make those decisions around resting when you're not rested and then you're not thinking rationally. So I think that's been a really big thing for me, to the point where it's, usually my husband saying, hey, you're not rested, you need to take some time out. So I love to almost, you can't predict this stuff. You can't predict when your kid's going to injure themselves or life's going to happen. But I think having some capacity in my schedule of every month, I've got the day off and it's just there in case I need it. So I can actually factor that in. So I'm so bad at it, Renee.
No, I think that's honestly phenomenal. And a couple of thoughts. So, off the back of my fatigue from my flying and working full time, I think for the 6 months after that, I sat in front of the TV after work and on my weekends for 6 months straight. I couldn't really do anything else because I was so tired. I was burnt out. And I think one thing that as I've gotten older, I don't have the stamina that I used to have, which is so sad to say out loud. So I actually almost every Saturday now, I'm ashamed to admit this, but I sit on the couch all day pretty much on one day of the weekend now in my normal routine back home when I'm working full time, because I'm exhausted by the time I get to Friday or Saturday. I go to the gym almost every day of the week, Monday to Friday, even if it's just for a 20-minute cardio session or to do an actual workout, because that stuff is so important to my health and my mental health, my physical health. I'm doing like crazy hours now between UK, America, Australia, and I'm still maintaining. So last year I did a bodybuilding comp, which was phenomenal for a lot of different reasons, but I learned the importance of just walking. And I know you made that comment that, walking doesn't feel like exercise. Walking is so important. Your heart rate is maintained at a certain level. Movement for your body, your blood flow, your blood pressure, everything. It's very needed. 10,000 steps a day is the goal. So I learned that through my bodybuilding last year. And so I maintain that even today. I will walk the dog religiously, like every day, to make sure I hit my 10,000 steps every day, and then train on top of that, doing my studies, and I'm working. It's chaos. So by the time I get to I'm shattered. I'm like, I need to sit all day. And I find a couple of different things. My mental health is so strong on Sunday. I'm so ready to now pick up the baton again and run hard for another 6 days straight. Sleep. Absolutely. I don't sleep enough at home. And since I've been in America for the past 5 weeks straight, because I don't have all of these extra responsibilities for work and, being with Alex and walking our dog and all of these things, I am literally just working and gymming and then doing my master's. And um, I have slept pretty much 8 hours consecutively every single night for the past 5 weeks. And I can't say that I've done that for years in my life. And I feel so sharp. I can see like my recall is really good. My just the way I articulate myself, just the conversations I'm having, I am so much stronger. And I recognize that from, 5 weeks ago when I was kind of just in the grind. And so that's crazy to me, right? Like the importance of sleep is so underrated. And I know that everybody talks about it. It's so obvious you must sleep. But to your point, I don't think it's that achievable as a mum, to be honest. Like you've got 2 young kids, like you're up almost every single night, multiple times per night still. And then you're running your own business. And even for me, because I'm working random hours now, I find I'm not getting to bed at a consistent hour, and then I'm getting up at irregular hours as well. So I'm lucky to get between 6 to 8 hours normally on a night. So, I think, shout out that regular sleep and exercise are foundational to self-care, and you have to schedule that in. And I also wanted to go on a separate kind of agenda, which is deadlines 99% of the time are movable. There are very few deadlines in our schedules, in our work that are hard pressed, right? Whether it's, hey, we want to send out these comms by Wednesday next week, that deadline was ambiguous and arbitrary, right? It would have been nice to have it out on Monday, but we're going to pick Wednesday, but actually the event doesn't happen until the following Friday. So we're just trying to give people a heads up. Like that's just an example, but most deadlines aren't fixed in time. So then how do you plan out your week foundationally to make sure you're including the things that really matter so that you're operating at a level of, and not to use like robotic words, but efficiency and optimization that you can maintain, sustainability, essentially. So it's a goal we all have. And I think, every week changes. So you have to deal with the cards that you've been thrown. But I think that that's probably a huge outcome is how do you schedule in the things that will help you thrive? And it's not always easy, but it needs to be prioritized.
Totally. And the kid thing is tricky because it is work. It is work to look after children. And previously I'd have, a side hustle and a day job. Now I feel like I've got the day job, which is the business, and then the kids are not the side hustle. They're, important part of my life, but they're an extra job, and actually relating to it like it is work, because often it's like you're working and then you're hanging out with the children. So the day actually can be quite a big day when you're doing all of that together. So yeah, I think it changes all the time too. Like the kids are getting older, they're doing different things. And I think it's a constant check-in of, is this working? What's working for me? And reevaluating that. So I think having a great environment, people like yourself, Renee, my husband, having this new coach who's helping me has made such a difference to actually just pause, think and regroup. And it's amazing how, just one day of resting. Like I literally binge watched a Netflix series. I don't even know the last time I did that, but this week.
I love that for you.
It's so good. And then it's funny too, because then I reflected on the situation and what was happening and on the show, and there was stuff that I could apply to the business. I'm like, oh, that's an interesting thought. And then I was getting really creative. And then one big thing that I noticed was how when I get so into like the grind and the day to day, then you miss out on this creativity and you miss out on this space. So there's probably lots of people listening to this going, duh, so obvious. But it's been a really great wake up call to have this challenge and then really reevaluate rest and what's working. And, the whole saying of like, you can get you get stuff done in whatever time you allocate, right? Like you allocate 2 hours to review a report, and then, that's the time you got, that's the time it takes you. So I think it's been a great wake up call and a great refresher on the importance of self-care. And I'm going to do better, Renee. That's my commitment. Maybe we can check in a year, see how I've gone on my commitment to self-care, but you can hold me accountable.
Maybe next month.
Yeah, maybe next week even,
Next week, I think. Yeah, you just made me think about the fact that sometimes we need permission to make a change. And whilst, if you were to kind of plan out your week and go, great, I'm going to do X, Y, Z. I think we have these habits of kind of sticking to our routines a little bit. And when our routine is messy and complex and there's a lot going on, it's not the best routine, right? And then we have an outsider come in and go, oh, you're doing too much. No wonder you're overwhelmed. No wonder you're underslept. No wonder da da da. So sometimes having an external party come in and really just say, these are the things you can try and do differently, just gives you that permission to go, oh yeah, like I can do this differently. I don't know why I've kind of enforced this routine on myself when it's unsustainable. Yes. I certainly had that experience recently. I had a coach call me and say, list all the things you're doing and how you're spending your time. And there was like 5 key roles that I was playing, like my job, my master's, I was on the board, I was public speaking, and I was running this podcast with you. And she said, pick 2 and do those 2 things really well. And I was like, only 2.5? And she was like, 2.5, maybe. But 2. So I was like, well, my master's and my job, like I have to do these things really well, right? She said, great, now you need to get rid of the other 3. And I was like, I really love podcasting. Can I keep podcasting? And she was like, of course. But like, that's the reality. If you're stretching yourself too far, you're not going to do a good job at all of them because you're just constantly stressed about the next thing.
Yeah.
And that same day, I quit the board that I was on, and I messaged Saxton Speaking Agency and said I won't be taking any jobs for the next 12 months. And I contacted you, Felicity, and I said, hey, can we reduce the frequency that we record, because I just need more time to just focus on these 2 things that I'm doing. And it was such a weight off my shoulders to just have those 2 things to think about for a period of time. On top of that, planning a wedding, trying to be a good partner, good dog mom, good friend, good family member, the list goes on. So, but it was just really nice to have that check-in and have someone, external to me point me in a direction that I wanted to go. So I think don't be scared to pull the trigger. Don't be scared to say no to things. Don't be scared to push out deadlines and create that time and space so that you can be creative, so that you can be well slept and that you can be present.
100%. Yeah, it was so helpful having this coach, and it was really that permission thing. She was like, have you forgiven yourself yet? Can you create some? I was like, oh, no, more tears. But just having that, she's like, you can rest and be kind to yourself, and just that, those permissions are so powerful. And it's like you can be saying it to yourself, and then someone just says that, and you just go like, oh my gosh, like
you just triggered this memory that I had. I always felt guilty sitting on the couch and watching TV, right? So up until I graduated 2020, so between when was it that I started? I started university in 2011 to 2020. Anytime I sat on the couch in those 9 years, the guilt I felt, I'm wasting time, I'm not achieving what I was set out to, I shouldn't be doing this. I feel uneasy just sitting and like relaxing. And it sounds ridiculous, right? Like I look back on them like, oh my God. But at the same time, I achieved so much in that time. So I'm like, it worked for a period. Would I do it again? Probably not. And what really changed for me is going through that burnout period where I just sat on the couch for 6 months. Like I realized how much I just needed to stop. And that's why now I've literally created that as part of my routine in a week now, is I get to sit on the couch, and I love that day so much. It just makes me so happy. And like, I feel like I'm a better person for it. I'm more relaxed. I don't sit there in guilt and feel like I should be doing more. I have reached a level of maturity, I suppose, where I'm finally like, this is enough for me and I'm achieving so much in those other 6 days that I just need this day to just relax and let go. Otherwise, I find other ways to procrastinate and to find those moments where I get to switch off. So I'd rather have that dedicated time than, I then sitting there feeling that guilt or, finding it in different ways, I suppose.
100%. Yeah. It's so helpful. And this was coming up, actually, Michael, my husband, and I looked into the neuroscience behind this. He's like, from a neuroscience perspective, we just literally ChatGPT, thank you so much, what's a neuroscience? Why do we not prioritize rest? And it actually feels like it's a thing in my brain when my brain is like, must work. And I think I've conditioned myself so much to do that because I have been doing so much. And like you said, Renee, like wouldn't change it. It's been amazing to achieve all these things, but actually it's gone too far the other way where, and I talked to my psychologist about this, and he said the same thing, where it's industrial revolution came along, we're all focused on production. So in many ways, and I can just speak for myself, like I've personally wired my brain to produce rather than to rest. So my brain is prioritizing production over that. And so this week has really started to process for me, I think, of retraining my brain to go, rest is actually critical and important. And I had an amazing sleep last night. I think I slept for like 12 hours, which was so good. And I'm switched on today, and it makes such a difference. I can think so much more clearly. And there's been so many times where I'm just like, just get it done, where actually I'm not producing and like I'm not actually effective in what I'm doing because I am so overtired. It's like, well, I may as well actually just go to bed and rest in the other way. So there's some really interesting neuroscience that sits behind this, and it's been fascinating to figure out how our brain works and how we don't prioritize rest.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, you've heard it here today. Make sure self-care is a part of your weekly routine. Make sure you're scheduling it in, checking in on what you're committing to, and really prioritizing yourself so that you can sustainably keep achieving.
Thanks so much, Renee. Great to get you wisdom, and I'll check in with you next week on how my rest is going. Have a great week ahead.
You too. Thank you.
See ya.